Good morning and a very warm welcome to the 2020 East of England Escalator Showcase, albeit not in quite the form we'd envisaged when the 6 talented new writers who will read for you today began their journey back in February. The Escalator programme has been running since 2004 and in that time has supported more than 120 promising writers at the beginnings of their careers. These include the crime writer Nicola Upson and the 3 writers who've acted as mentors this year, Megan Bradbury, Michael Doncor and Kate Worsley. Our thanks to them for their hard work and inspiration. Our thanks also to Arts Council England and the Garrick Club Charitable Trust for their support for this programme. Our focus this year has been on offering the Escalator development opportunity to writers with great potential, but who have, for various reasons, experienced barriers to accessing support for their writing and professional development. When you hear their readings, I'm sure you'll agree that these are new voices which deserve to be heard. The recorded readings, which is the next part of today's presentation, will last for about 35 minutes. After that, there will be a chance for you to put your questions to the writers live, as it were. If you do have a question, please could you type it into the chat box beside the film, and we will relay it to the writers immediately after the film is finished, and they will be able to reply in real time using the wonders of technology. Thank you and enjoy the recording, and I will see you on the other side.
Hello, my name is Sarah Gillett. I'm going to read from the beginning of my novel, The Dying Business, a literary crime thriller set in the future, just as euthanasia is being legalised. Kate Pearson has had to leave her job as a detective inspector, specialising in cybercrime, after being diagnosed with treatable but not curable cancer. She's bereft and rootless. The novel opens with her reporting into her oncology support programme, Strive to be Alive. In the post-COVID world of austerity, cancer services have been privatised. Patients have to earn the right to continuing treatment by demonstrating that they are value for money, self-managing their disease effectively, their progress being monitored remotely. Kate is then asked by an ex-colleague to go undercover at Oak Tree Hospice, to which she's been referred as a patient, investigating rumours of opioid misuse. She soon finds herself the only person who can solve the murder of the new Broome CEO, appointed to transform the hospice into a private euthanasia centre. In unravelling the crime, Kate reclaims her sense of self, learning to live fully again in her new reality. Chapter 1, a small town in England in the near future. Alexa, what's my treatment password? Kate was sitting in her favourite chair in the corner of her living room, doing her best to save her life. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Alexa, my treatment password. Kate's hands trembled and the phone slipped around as she pressed the numbers. 1,000 images of life before cancer, when none of this was necessary, slid into her consciousness. The screen opened. She breathed. Good morning, Kate. You have 7 minutes to complete eligibility screening for this week's treatment, funded for you by the Citizens Health Service. First, please input your data for the support period. It was precisely 10 a.m. Since being woken by her phone at 6 that morning, Kate had been recreating herself in the image of the perfect patient, applying makeup, but not too much, styling her hair, but not too perfectly, generating step counts, adding to the library of short videos of her exercising, stretching, and meditating. She'd been practicing lines for the psych health assessment to come over as positive about cure but not deluded, seeming to be that strong, confident woman who sees difficulty only as opportunity. The effort had left her exhausted, frightened, and desperate. She pressed upload and waited, fixing her eyes on the transferring arc of data. Somewhere in the silence, there was a noise outside. After some minutes of whirring, the phone spoke. Step count, satisfactory. Diet, satisfactory. User participation in care, satisfactory. Please watch the doctor for photo analysis. The program was deciding if you could have treatment. Kate, you have earned treatment this week. The cartoon nurse whooped, juggling champagne bottles. Kate's relief was immediate, as if she'd been drowning and had now reached air. You have a new achievement. Your step count has increased 30%. You're in the top third of our clients, eligible for the Platinum Progress League. A sudden nausea and weakness flooded her, causing her to double up in the chair, holding her phone above her head, pointing it at the motivational poster she'd put up for distraction purposes, in case the camera was on surveillance. Kate breathed in and out quickly, forced a smile, and then looked at the phone again. As suddenly as they had popped up, the champagne bottles vanished. The cartoon nurse became still and looked straight ahead. Kate, it is essential for your health that you upload more selfies in different situations and implant the data collection chip in your forearm. It has been generously funded by your fellow citizens to make life better for you. The cartoon nurse looked up. It will arrive by courier within 24 hours. The figure looked at the clipboard. Now, for the final part of our caring intervention, please press the number that best fits your response. I want to give something back to society where naught is not at all and 10 is completely. These were new questions. Kate hadn't seen them posted on the cheat sites run by former cancer patients who'd successfully earned a complete course of treatment. She pressed 9. I'm grateful for all the small good things that happen in my life. 10. That must be a 10. Today she was not feeling grateful for anything, but this was a game she needed to win. I'm lucky to be getting this treatment that my fellow citizens have paid for. 7. Surely 7 here, she thought, because my fellow citizens must understand that they were also lucky not to need it. She marked 9. You can't be too grateful. You can't be too lucky. I'm managing my illness proactively. 10, obviously. The smile on the face of the nurse filled the screen and a bell rang somewhere. Congratulations, your appointment is Wednesday the 9th of May. Treatment Hub 20. Please ensure we can access all your data files. End meeting flashed up. The nurse vanished. That bell rang again, insistently. Her door. Someone was ringing at her door.
Hello, I am Moniquez, and I will be reading an extract from my novel Stray. It is the first half of a story about a mixed-race millennial woman named Tilly, who was raised in the US by various first and second generational immigrant households in the lead up to and aftermath of 9/11. Its counterpart, Stay, is about the same character's arrival into the UK, mainly coming to terms with who she is and where she belongs in the lead up to and aftermath of the 2016 referendum. Together, the two stories follow a homelessness to home office journey centered on what it means to be American, to be British, to be an immigrant, to be visible, to inherit intergenerational trauma, and to choose love in a hostile environment in honor of the memory of those erased from history. Uncle Tommy says he is sorry, but Grandpa wafts it away. After all, his apology sounds as sincere as the ones I dispense for Lucy on a regular basis. Grandpa shrugs his square shoulders and settles for the hot dog he buries under a thicket of sauerkraut. There are no dogs in hot dogs, he grins between bites, just like there is no ham in hamburgers. Uncle Edward asks if this is disappointing. Although Grandpa replies it's no kielbasa, Uncle Edward is looking at me. Mom won't let me serve myself because I'm not a grown-up. Even though I tell her what I like and don't like, she decides what and how much of it is on my plate and sends me back with a mosaic of salads, coleslaw, potato, macaroni, and just salad, and a side of cheeseburger. Paralegal sends me back for cutlery. I pass her a spoon. Now, how am I supposed to cut my steak with a spoon, she asks, in a silly voice that only amuses herself. So I pass her a fork. Her sickly sweet voice, more jarring than Aunt Beverly's, dismisses my efforts with the "that's okay, hun." But it isn't, because she is intently watching my mother cut up my burger with a spoon. Dad won't let me have his bottle of Yoo-Hoo that he claims isn't Yoo-Hoo because I am not a grown-up. He asks operations research analyst and computer systems analyst if there are any tennis courts in the development. There are. And if they are maintained and any good to play on, they are. And if they hit with Tommy, they do. And if they knew he was on the tennis team back in high school, they did. And if they know Dad taught him how to play, they didn't. So what do? They ask, swatting flies away from eroded corn cobs. Dad tells them about playing tennis and playing drums and flying planes and sailing boats, about his interest in ham radios and the Hubble Space Telescope, about friends they don't know back home who still meet up to jam out, and friends in the city putting on an exhibition they haven't heard of. They tell him about hardwood flooring, eat-in kitchens and bay windows, about snow removal and pool access, about SUVs and BMWs. And although I don't quite understand what it's all about, in some small way I do, like how Grandma can understand a wren. The Black Velvet song Mom likes comes on the radio again, but she doesn't sing along to it this time. I think maybe because it has something to do with Uncle George. Grandpa says he will be fine because of Havel and Voenza, friends of his, I think. But Grandma's eyes are tearing up. She says she will visit him. She wants to see the farm again, and the schoolhouse, and the valley. Uncle Edward says something about the cops being justified, but Uncle Tommy doesn't believe it. Uncle Edward says something about John Miller and Marla Maples, but Uncle Tommy doesn't get it. Uncle Edward says something about the sequel to The Naked Gun, but Uncle Tommy can't wait. Real estate agent asks what egg rolls are. Aunt Jeannie says my mother bought them. Real estate agent says they are delicious. Mom says to dip it in duck sauce, adding that there isn't any duck in duck sauce, nor are there any eggs in egg rolls. Real estate agent urges life insurance agent to try one, dabbing her face and fingers with a napkin, but life insurance agent says she really shouldn't. She is on a diet. Real estate agent says she saw the news about the volcano. Mom says her family is okay, that they are on a different island, but it confuses me. Life insurance agent mentions an earthquake in California and a tornado in Florida. Dad says something about fossil fuel burning. Uncle Edward says Dad is a hippie. Dad says Uncle Edward is a square. I think this is because of the shape of his frames, making his eyes look bigger than they are. Soon enough, they are arguing over a bush. I worry Dad could lose to Uncle Edward because he is taller, louder, and wider. Uncle Tommy says no more politics. Dad says it's his freedom of speech. Uncle Edward says the 60s are over and calls Dad Kenneth. Uncle Tommy says enough and calls Uncle Edward Ed. Grandpa calls Dad Kenny and tells him to knock it off. Grandma calls Uncle Edward Eddie and tells him to apologize to Tommy. Uncle Tommy just stands there adjusting his glasses. They are round and make his eyes look smaller than they are. Life insurance agent clears her throat and says lightning struck a spectator in the middle of the US Open, and they died. That a stadium collapsed in England and a lot of people died. That life is unpredictable, so we'd better get life insurance. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Stephen Rayner, and this is the opening of my novel, The Sensitive, which is about two teenagers separated by 50 years who have both got sensitive psychic abilities. Chapter 1, London, 1950. Despite being an orphan for 6 years now, Leon Cuff had never really taken to it. He sat in the window above his bed, enjoying the warmth of the autumn sun and, for once, the quiet of the empty dormitory. St. Philomena's home for orphan boys was Victorian built, with high windows and deep, generous sills, with enough space for Leon to sit cross-legged and watch the other boys in the playground below. Such a feeling of calmness was as uncommon as the late October sunshine, and he breathed it in slow and deep, and daydreamed he was gazing out the cabin porthole of a steamer. The concrete of the playground became the sea, the white paint of the hopscotch squares, the breaking foam atop the waves. He pictured the orphanage and the playground passing into the near distance as his ship kept to its course. Then the voice in his head spoke. "So, are the other boys overboard? You don't seem concerned for their fate." "It's a daydream, Pen. Thanks for interrupting. You should join the others, Leon. The bell hasn't even gone yet. And when it does, you won't have time to get downstairs without being seen." So, that's not a sensible response, Leon. How's this? Can't I have even 5 minutes to myself? I'm sorry for interrupting, but if you get caught up here, you won't have a place to escape to. Also, getting caught means trouble. Trouble means him. Also, it's Tuesday. All right, no need to go on. I get it. As he swung his legs and climbed down onto his bed, he heard Sister Claire ring the bell in the playground. Leon? Yes. He hopped to the floor, paused a moment to make his sheets taut again, then hurried off between the empty beds. In the time it took to get downstairs, slip outside and join the back of the line filing inside, a heavy dread settled about his shoulders, and he seemed different, sullen and thwarted, a boy surely incapable of daydreams. They shuffled into the hall and began to line up, shoulder to shoulder, along the rear wall. "Leon," called a voice from the other end of the row. Danny Inglis stood with his hand up, beckoning Leon to join him. "I saved you a space." Ordinarily, Danny would catch grief from the others for this. Leon was the oldest boy at St. Philomena's, and Danny one of the youngest. But on Tuesday mornings, no one was interested in teasing, only first impressions. "Thanks," said Leon, as he slotted in between Danny and another boy called Ralphie Campbell, who was muttering under his breath. Probably praying, thought Leon. "Any special requests this week?" said Leon. Danny executed a powerful sniff, then wiped his nose on the sleeve of his jumper. "Oh, just the usual," shrugged Danny. "Let's see. An RAF flying ace who is a millionaire with a wife who makes the best cakes," said Leon. Danny nodded. "And bakes every day. And they have 2 spaniels and a cat." "A cat now as well," said Leon, "to sit on my lap and keep me company when I'm tired from walking the dogs." "Of course," said Leon. "I expect they're on their way now." Danny grinned, shuffled his feet nervously, then put on a posh voice. "Yes, though I expect they'll be late. Traffic from Kensington, what? "Rather," said Leon, joining in. Indeed, said Danny. Their smiles died and a hush filled the room as the nuns entered the hall. Sister Claire, Sister Pius, and finally Sister Frances, the head mistress of St. Philomena's, her hands clasped behind her back. She was short, rather red-faced as though recently exasperated, with a stare best avoided. She stopped in the centre of the hall. "Good morning, boys," she said. "Good morning, Sister Frances," said the boys in a half-sung monotone. "You better wake up if you want to make a good impression on these people." Again. "Good morning, Sister Frances," called out the boys. "That's better."
my name is Jenny Toomey. I'm one of the Escalator finalists of 2020, and this is an extract from my novel Blurred Lines, which I've been working on. The novel is about, first part is set in the 90s. It's about a high school student who is raped by a fellow student, and it's about her, how she processes that over the years. And this extract is set in the 90s when she's a teenager, and she is 15 years old in this extract. York, 1993. Can't believe it's come to this. Yank my satchel tight over my shoulder and step out into the night. Slam front door, nobody hears. Father working night shift at the hospital, saving lives. Mother fast asleep, tramadol fog. Big sister Deb out living the high life, sitting on Richard's knee on a wall outside the fire station, laughing, kissing, eyes for no one else. And me, I'm hanging by a thread and they can't see. Black silence, rain fresh air. I'm the last person in the world tiptoeing through the streets of York to Cassie's house. Still in awe that she's friends with me, pale violin and tuba playing freak they call Morticia. Look up, Cassie shining a torch to her face at the attic window. Kira, what took you so long? It's nearly 10 past midnight. Here, catch these. Plastic bags with fags, lighter, magazines lands at my feet. Climbs out of window, grabs drain pipes, ledges, makes her way monkey-like to the soft ground. Reckon I could do this in my sleep now, she says. Give over, I say. One slip and you're a goner. Sprint down the street past the Bear and Bells and round the corner to the playground. Over the knee-high wooden fence, and we've made it. Catch our breath, like the Embassy No. 1s. Sit on the swings, and Cassie twists open the half bottle of Smirnoff from her coat pocket, takes a sip. God, I needed that, she says. Your turn. Vodka oils my thoughts, and I can face the moment, thinking how things could be if we stayed pissed forever, like Cassie, the expert, always a bottle or glass in hand. Takes after her mum, sleeping on the sofa after another awards ceremony she disgraced herself at. Soap actress turned tabloid joke, according to Cassie. Cassie talks about tomorrow night, half-price entry to Jester's nightclub. It's going to be mega, she says. I'm going to get so drunk, and we definitely need to find you a nice boyfriend, Kira. Yeah, in my dreams, I say in my head. Only kissed 2 boys, neither special. All right for her, she's got Freddie. Spits and swears in street, but still wears Christmas jumpers and kisses her on the nose sort of boyfriend. Who'd you pick out of Carl Wiley, Danny Mills and my Freddie? Asks Cassie. Imagine you have to shag one of them. Come on, Kira, you know you want to. Okay, let me think. Go on, I'll say Danny, even though he's your ex. Really, what goes on in your head? Don't you remember I split his eyebrow the other month because he kept standing me up? Besides, he's still a short ass at the end of the day. I'm glad we never made a go of things properly, although it's nice we're still friends. I expect he'd be different with you if you ever got together. You're soft and more easygoing than me. Smooth my hair down, dampen the drizzle. I suppose Danny did do that drawing for me when I was off sick with flu the other week, didn't he? I say. You know, the Van Gogh picture with the stars and the cypress tree. But then in every conversation I have with him, he always mentions his mum, and I never know if I think it's sweet or annoying. It's annoying, Kira, definitely annoying, Cassie says. You've got to worry about someone who's still a mummy's boy at the age of 16. But at least it shows he's one of the good guys, I suppose. Not like bloody Carl or even my Freddie. Talk turns to school, but seed is sown. Wonder about Danny Mills and his Van Gogh sketches. Would he make a nice boyfriend? Been through every boy in class in my head and know my limits. Wish I could be more like Cassie. Life's looking up for me at school since she arrived. Expelled and shunned from Park Manor all girls, and stated as hero at St. Joseph's. Everybody loves a ringleader, especially one who organises fake seances and brings whiskey into assembly. Sat next to me in double science on her first day, the only girls with no work partners. Cassie grateful I wrote up peanut experiment for her and stayed with me all lunchtime. Friends ever since. No turning back now, open my sad life up. No more dinner money stealing, no more kicks in the back during history, no more Carl Wiley touching my bum in the dinner queue, or digs about the Addams family and guessing what's inside my tuba case. Or stop because everybody wants to be friends with Cassie, and if anyone gives me any grief, she threatens to punch their lights out. Ex-prize fighter at Park Manor, all girls afraid of her awesome powers. Redheads rule the world, she yells, punching the air and flying through the playground, fake tan and mascara indelible.
Hi, my name is John Down. I'm going to give a reading from my novel British Teeth, which is a book about a man trying to put himself back together as his country falls apart. It's set over 4 days in March of this year, as the main character, also called John, returns to his hometown for his mother's funeral. The reading I'm going to give is from the beginning of the novel. I've no idea where I am or how I got here. No idea what's happened. I'm standing with a pint in my hand and suddenly very sober, very afraid. 3 men are staring back at me. One nods his head towards the door. My legs carry me, though everything is screaming, stop. As I reach it, a voice behind me says, I'm sorry, mate, I don't want to do this, but you can't say that and expect to get away with it. I step into the light, the electrical crackle of a magpie across the road. Someone takes my drink from me. I turn to ask what, but halfway around, I'm falling, underwater, the pain of water around me, my mouth full of blood and gravel. But how can there be gravel underwater? They're my teeth, my teeth! I swallow and choke on blood and teeth, the thickness in my throat, and I'm drowning in my own blood and I wake. Gasp for air, lurch forward, coughing, bang my head on the seat in front of me, blind, deaf, speechless, fuck, what a fucking mess. I scramble in my pockets for tissues to wipe the phlegm from my lips, my chin, more to wipe my eyes, blow my nose, to slow, deep breathe. And they're looking at me. They're looking at me like I'm some sort of crazed, crippled Caliban. Be not feared, this isle is full of strange noises that give delight and hurt not. We'll see about that. And they turn away as our eyes meet, and I know how grateful they are not to be me, and I breathe. Eyes closed. Breathe. Dream. Just a dream. I rub my head and I sink. I'm sunk again by the reflex of memory, the weight of it. A dropped phone, a bang on the head, and Rebecca, and the world begins again. But I've imagined so many beginnings, I get confused between what I've written and what I've lived. That's not true. I know the difference perfectly well. I just can't find the place, the moment, the word. The train rattles across the points as we slow. I look out the window at the grey houses perched on the sides of the shallow valley. Here. It begins here.
My name is Paul Cooch and I live in Suffolk, but I was born and raised in South Wales. This is an extract from my debut novel, The Keeper. The Keeper is a story of 2 brothers who are twins in the 1970s. One of the brothers disappears and the other is left with the repercussions of that disappearance. It was 5 to 5 on a wet Saturday night, and many of the shops devoid of viable trade were shutting already. If I was chilled before the cruel winter wind outside the cafe, then the sound of a familiar voice yelling at me from across the street made it 10 times worse. Oi, Trevor, what you wandering around here for? In the rain, man, you'll catch you going deaf. All right, Gareth, I answered meekly. Vern and I had taken an instant dislike to Gareth Palfreman from the moment Megan brought him home. Was he meant to be the one? God, we hope not. We weren't snobs by any means, but Gareth was rougher than any soul who'd stepped through our front door. He had a fixed grin on his face that looked for all the world as though it had been glued there, a vicious overbite, and ears that stuck out like Sean's stuffed monkey. Vern and I mocked him cruelly behind his back, but would never have done so openly because we created our own urban myth that Gareth had a darker side that might interest the police. "Get in, I'm going your way," he yelled. "No, that's all right, the bus will be here in just a minute." "Get in, your mum would have my ballsack for a door knocker if she found out I'd left you in town in all this." As I climbed into his battered car, the whiff of stale tobacco and wet dog assailed my nostrils. Gareth had a German Shepherd back in the days before Alsatian went out of favour, but the creature was banned from our house after it snapped at baby Hugh's face in full view of Pappy. In fairness, Roscoe had been sitting on the hearth, minding his own business and licking his balls, when Hugh crawled over and grabbed the mutt's tail, yanking it hard. The ensuing furore resulted in both Gareth and the beast being ejected from the house and Hugh being rushed to hospital for a tetanus and stitches in his face. Gareth was eventually allowed back after he offered a profuse apologies and a co-op fruitcake of all things, but Roscoe was forever banished. There was little said between us and no sound in the cramped space other than a fetid slosh of sleet being washed away from the windscreen in sweeping waves. "So what kind of music do you like?" "Anything really," I replied. "Oh, okay. Anything on top of the pops. Slade, Gary Glitter, anything." "What about metal? A bit of Led Zeppelin?" "No, not really." "Films. Do you like going to the pictures?" "Well, I like war films," I said awkwardly. "War films are all right. Nothing soppy, though." Gareth chuckled. "Yeah, I like war films too. Clint Eastwood and stuff. He's well hard." I smiled in the darkness and thought the interrogation was finished until, "We could go sometime if you like." "Sorry?" "To the pictures, man. See a film." I staggered nervously. To my 13-year-old mind, it seemed as if Gareth was asking me out on a date. There was that kind of familiar, stilted uncertainty about his words that I remember overhearing in school. But I was a teenage boy and he was Megan's boyfriend. He slept with my sister, felt up her fanny in secret while the rest of the family slumbered. Plus, he was 10 years older than me, so what possible joint interests could we have that would make us mates? "I get a lot of homework," I lied. "I don't really go out much, plus I spend a lot of time with my brother." "Oh, come on, Mum, we've got a lot in common, you and me, just lads together, eh?" There was an all-enveloping dread as I realised that the engine of Gareth's Austin Allegro had stopped and that he'd lit a cigarette. In the deepening twilight, I thought I recognised Cefn Bronwen Methodist Church, which meant we were still a good 3 miles away from my house. In the distance, sodium street lamps gave the rows of terraced houses an orange luminescence, and the ghostly tinkling whisper of an ice cream van's bells was barely audible. "You want one?" He pushed a pack of Embassy No. 10 under my nose. I winced at the smell of raw tobacco. "I'm 13, I don't smoke." "Fucking 13, he chuckled. "I was on 20th fucking day, but your age. Go on, have a drag on mine then, just to be sociable." "No, really, thanks." He thrust the packet back into his pocket with a snort. "You got a girlfriend?" "No." "Why not?" "Look," I said, "I'm supposed to be home by 6. "Hold your horses now, right? We've got half an hour yet. Right little mummy's boy you're going to turn into if you're not careful." I could feel my heart thumping in my chest like Collie Franklin beating on that stupid great drum of his in the school band. "I don't know what I'd do without girls," Gareth muttered, blowing smoke rings between each word. I started to cough as sweet fumes from his cigarette started filling the Allegro. "Weren't yourself silly, probably." And he began to laugh. Hollow humour. His pastel grin didn't even waver, not for a moment. I could feel my face drain, and I didn't know what to say. I wasn't unaware of the merits of self-pleasuring. That didn't mean I was going to talk about it with my sister's psycho boyfriend with a stink of his mangy dog hanging thick in the air. So I did the first thing that came to mind. I leaned forward and fumbled for the radio. And there we sat for endless minutes, neither speaking, as Tom Jones droned on about how he'd never see the green grass of home again. And the smell of high karate and stale tobacco assaulted my nostrils. The inane chatter from the tinny central column speaker filled in the gaps between the songs, but I wasn't listening. I was distracted by the fact that Gareth now had his left arm slung around the back of my seat, and that his right seemed to be in his lap, playing with his genitals through the shiny polyester of his trousers as he spoke to me. "What you doing?" I asked nervously. He didn't answer, but with lightning speed, his hand left his own groin and was now frantically rubbing at mine. The breath was sucked from my lungs, leaving a vacuum in my chest that threatened to implode it, and my mouth opened and closed like a fairground goldfish out of water. "Don't worry, right? You're going to like this," I heard Gareth whisper through the rush of blood in my ears. "No, I'm not, because you're not going to do anything," I screeched, flailing about and trying to find the door handle in the dark. Despite us younger manners having a sheltered childhood, we'd all heard of kiddie fiddlers and didn't intend becoming a statistic. At some point, my right wrist met Gareth's face and felt with some satisfaction the Timex watch Mum and Dad had bought me last Christmas tear into his flesh. "Don't be fucking stupid, Trevor," he hissed, and I could feel his warm, tainted breath hot against my face. "I just want you to touch it for me, that's a bit, man." "No, will I touch yours then?" "No," I bellowed and fell from the Allegro into the torrential rain outside. Gareth started to open his door, but apparently thought better of it, leaving me standing on the roadside, frozen and soaked to the skin. There was a screech of ancient tyres as he drove away into the unforgiving night. We didn't see much of Gareth after that.
Before everybody leaves, I just wanted to quickly draw your attention to the fact that Escalator is in need of your help at the moment. We are about to embark on a fundraising appeal for this programme. The years of austerity and now the impact of the COVID pandemic have made funding for essential support and mentoring for underrepresented writers from our region. Our aim is to be able to offer mentorships to 10 new writers each year. This year, however, funding constraints have limited us to 6. It's been a pleasure and privilege to work with them, but frustrating to know there are other equally talented voices out there whom we have been unable to support. Please help us to reach our target of 10 writers per year in future. To support an early career writer through the 9-month programme costs £2,200. This covers mentoring, masterclasses in various aspects of the writer's life, including training for public appearances, and of course the final showcase event that you are all with us at now, when they have an opportunity to share their work with you and industry professionals. We're therefore aiming to raise £8,800 to secure 4 more places on the Escalator 2021 programme. Escalator supports writers whose voices are underrepresented. Helping them to develop their work for publication contributes to a broader publishing landscape that can better represent our society today. Please help us to find the voices of the future by donating to Escalator via the link that you will now see on your screens. Thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for attending. And that brings us to the end of our event for today. Thank you.